Hey there, Santi here. Welcome to part 2 of my conversation with Riccardo. If you haven't seen part 1, you can find the links here or in the description. And we get a lot into sharing our screens, teaching you as much as we can of Tana with some really cool pro tips that you're not going to want to miss. So I really hope you enjoyed this interview. Now, if you're still a beginner and you would like to learn Tana in the best possible way, do check out my Tana course where I walk you through the fundamentals of this amazing app so that you can build the right foundations to develop the workflow that you've been dreaming of. So yeah, check out that in the description. And I know some of you have been telling me like, hey, I would love to get your course, but I don't have access to Tana yet. As of December 2022, Tana is still invite only. So I'm happy to say that now I have invites for those of you that get my course. So you no longer have that excuse, so do check out the link in the description for more information regarding invites. And if you're watching this in the future, hopefully, everyone can just access it and it's a free world where there's no invites needed. But as of right now, happy to say I can provide invites for my course students. So if that sounds cool, do check out the description. And with that said, I hope you enjoy this interview. Do you have any example of anything that you use with regular expressions? Because that's obviously very advanced, but it can definitely help you make things way more efficient, right?
It is. And actually, I've never used them. So here in Tana, so I could actually try, for example.
Let's try it. I haven't used it myself with regular expressions.
So for example, what you could do is go to learn more, and learn more. I will restrict this. It will basically show you that you can use regular expressions. So if you go here, a regular expression, you can put it basically between these two slashes. So the idea is that for those who don't know, regular expressions is just a syntax. Basically, it's a way to define how to match strings. So let's say it's a small domain-specific language that is run by a parser and a processor that will basically search for specific things. So I've never used them, so this is completely live. So for example, if I want to search for a node that has, let's say, one or more occurrences of a word, in this case, I'm not sure it's actually
I'm not sure
properly.
why. Maybe the first backward slash. Oh, let me see. Only nodes. Yeah, I'm not an expert to be honest, but go ahead, try it. We need to enable it.
Enable it.
That's why.
Yes.
Yep.
But just to make sure, I want to also to go on a website to actually build it, because of course the syntax is not so straightforward. So actually, let's say that I want to match every single characters, let's say multiple times. This is basically a way of saying match every word 0, or let's say we can use the plus to say one or more times. And so in this case, what I can do, okay, perfect, it works, as you can see. So here I'm saying, give me all the nodes that, for example, contain a number of words. Let's say that, for example, now, here I want lectures. This is a great example.
That's a good one.
So how to build a regexec for that? I can say, give me lecture. Then in this case, I specify that I want a digit. And I want a digit. And then what I want to do is basically specify that I want a word multiple times.
Yes,
as you can see, bam, I have
amazing
all of my things. And it's very simple. Of course, regexes, both in programming and in other use cases, are very difficult to read, and they can get crazy complicated. But as you can see here, I basically modeled my workflow to say, give me all the lecture that has lecture, a single digit, and a word. Of course, this has a pitfall. That is, if I have multiple, let's say that I don't know the upper bound of my lecture, let's say I can have lecture 10, lecture 100, I can fix it up. For example, let's say that I create a simple lecture that is lecture 100 test, and it's basically a course note. So it's correlated to a course, which is basically a project. Let's say it's distributed systems. Amazing. So if I run the query, you can see that it's not fetched. So what I can do is just apply this operator exactly in the same way, and you can see nodes are fetched.
Beautiful.
Automatically.
Wow. And just to give people some ideas, like you could do like only show me lectures from 1 to 5, or only show me words that start with the letter C. Like you can do all types of stuff like that, right? That's a good one. Yeah.
Yes,
lectures
for example,
1 to 5.
do like this.
Oh, amazing.
And
So cool. So cool.
Like the DSL of regexes can enable you to do many things. Of course, in this case, you can actually And this is a great topic that we actually came onto this. And the problem is that with this kind of solution, we're actually leveraging strings matching. Strings matching is great, but what if you actually use fields to do that? So you can actually do it in a typed fashion. That is, instead of actually, for example, saying, okay, I create a lecture, blah, blah, blah. What if I just create a course note, which automatically will create a lecture and the number will be automatically fetched from a field called lecture number. In that case, I can just perform the query without having to perform regex matching. And of course, this can create more possibilities because you can use other operators on top of those.
Right.
And so
it gets crazy, yeah.
Like it gets crazy. Like you can use, for example, in this case, like one interesting concept is the idea of initialize expressions, which is a complex topic. But basically what you could do is, for example, create a field which is called lecture number. And this field with Tana, I will show you because this is crazy. So let's say that I create here a field which is called let's say lecture number.
Right.
What I can do is actually use the what's called the initialize expression. I don't remember. I think it was.
Let me see. I'm also searching just to see if I find it.
I'm just double checking because actually.
Yeah.
I don't remember what was the name, but basically the idea is that you can actually populate the field with a function. So you can define, for example, a function that says, look up for all of the course nodes related to this, give me the maximum number, and that maximum number plus one will be my new lecture number. So you can actually do this in Tana.
I didn't know that,
They have operators to do that. Yes.
Okay.
So
wow.
This is
that way you can
initialize expression.
Initialize expression, right? It's just a better way to kind of like automate and just like make some things more efficient by outsourcing it to the technology of Tana, right? Yep.
Yes, exactly.
Amazing.
I think it's called,
Tana,
actually.
Yeah, it's hard to find
basically, this is an example on Flipboard.
Oh,
basically,
great.
Yeah, it's not properly
documented
because it's not indexed on the Tana help. Yes,
yeah, it's not.
It's still let's say a beta feature. Let's say for
yeah, very nice. Yeah, I mean, I'm sure that will get more polished, and it's probably going to be easier to achieve it through just some more accessible ways to do it. Because right now, for instance, the way that you can configure schemas or super tags is by by doing the legacy configuration of tags, to do more advanced things, right? So like I'm sure they're gonna be adding more things in easier menus. Because how do you feel? Like what is your take on, like, do you think right now Tana is easy for beginners, or is it still a bit too hard? What do you think of that?
I think Tana is in a position in which they can make accessible to many people the power of ontologies. That is, you can very, very simply use Tana without any of these advanced features. Like if you see my Tana, it's not using anything advanced. It's very simple queries, not complicated. I don't use initialize expressions because actually what I care is actually about modeling simple applications. But you can actually, for example, use more advanced things, which include, for example, DOM mappings, initialize expression, regex-based queries, custom wildcards for like tree traversal in queries. There are so many things that you can do, but I think that for beginners, they can restrict their domain of knowledge to a subset of features and they could be happy. And I think it's great because actually if you use Tana, for example, if you go here, let's say that you configure your first meeting tag. Advanced, it's here, it's hidden. They don't want to overwhelm people. And that's important. They want to make it accessible. Like Rome is not accessible because it's super complicated to do everything and the UI is cumbersome. And it's less advanced than this top, like how it works.
That's true. That's true.
But
like
you can
Notion, for
see
instance.
that they.
Sorry, I was just gonna say, like Notion, for instance, makes it very accessible, but at the expense of like there's a lot of features that either they just don't want to release because it would be too difficult for people, or I don't really know the logic of that. But like you say, like Tana makes it everything that is easy to find. Everything that's complicated, you have to go
For
through
me,
some
Tana is
places.
easier than Notion.
You
For
think
me,
so?
Tana is easier than Notion, for example.
Wow.
For me, yes.
That's interesting. Why do you think that is? Like, is it the node-based structure, like the fact that it's an outliner? What is it that makes it easier for you?
Honestly, I think that they polish so well the basics that for me, like maybe it's like only me, but for me, it's way more natural to think about nodes as opposed to pages that are nested inside of pages. Because actually Notion, the first thing I don't like about it is, for example, the fact that pages belong to databases. In Tana, nodes belong, like when you, in Tana, the idea is that live queries, it's basically databases in Notion.
Yeah.
But in Tana, live queries are just materialized views on your data. And so I think that the main thing that is easy for me is that in Tana, I just dump information. I don't care where the information goes as long as the data is filled in properly. In Notion, you have to put it into a page.
Yes.
And you need to think where to put it. And that's the thing that creates most complexity for me, because actually that's for me complexity, because it creates friction when I add data. And the fact that I cannot surface it in multiple queries, maybe they changed it, but I'm not sure.
Yeah. I know what you mean. You know what?
For me, it's more
I was going to say,
complex.
can you put us on full screen right now? I think we're still sharing. I don't think I can control it, but let's talk full screen view for a second. Because
which full screen view? Sorry.
I don't know. I just meant like if you can stop sharing the screen for a sec.
Sorry.
Yeah, don't worry. Yeah, cool. No, yeah, I'm very interested in what you're saying about simplicity versus complexity. Like I think in programming and in general, like using apps and developing our own systems, it's super important to work on tools that allow us to do things in a simple way. And that thing that you said is very important about how in Tana, you pretty much write things anywhere, doesn't matter where it is, and then you can filter it, you can query it in all sorts of ways. And that is the big difference, like you said, with Notion, right? Notion, you always have to either build a dedicated database table or you gotta start moving things very manually. And I agree, like if you have like a very simple setup in Notion and then you want to make it bigger, it takes just so much maintenance. If you want to change one filter somewhere, you need to change it everywhere. It just gets super messy. Yeah.
And I think that's also the power of Tana, is that with references, you can also reuse logic, because you can see queries as basically functions of the node in which they reside.
Right.
And so you can actually reference these functions to basically mimic their behavior, or better use them as shadows. So there are many ways. For me, like what I struggle about Tana is actually to explain people this idea of references, because they are not used to it. Like many tools do, like use, one thing is inline referencing. The other thing is actually references like Tana does. And that's a different thing. And this is, I think, what makes Tana so powerful, that you can reuse information as much as possible. And for example, one thing that you said about maintainability, Tana is great because if you choose to have a tag that has default content and then you change the default content, it will automatically be changed everywhere. And the beautiful thing about Tana is that if you think about it, let's say that, for example, in a meeting, I delete a field, Tana will automatically move that field from the default content to the content of the node if it is assigned, so that you don't lose the data. It's just not default anymore.
Right.
This is great because you can, for example, delete fields without deleting information. You are just deleting the default structure or modifying the default structure of your system, let's say.
Yeah. you mentioned, references and what other apps might call either like embeds or, block embeds in Rome or Loxic, right?
Exactly.
It's interesting because Rome obviously like made it accessible in a way, and like doing alt and then clicking and dropping was a way to kind of like just make a reference. And then, for instance, Loxic makes it, it's just different levels at which different apps make use of embedding information. But to me, like I haven't seen anything like Tana that makes it just so simple. and it can just be as easy as copy paste. You know, you just put the cursor where you want to be, you copy it, and you paste it somewhere else, and now that information is mutually existent. It really lives in one place, but it can be seen and modified from anywhere, right? Everything's like a plug in bed rather than a reference, right?
Exactly. But actually, Tana, for example, has this concept of reference and inline reference that actually behaves similarly, but it's just from a user experience point of view different. If you simply tag a node and you don't have any content, then you're basically mirroring the entire node. So it's just you're taking let's say, a shadow copy and putting it in your workflow. Whereas, for example, if you say, I am mentioning a node that is an inline reference, you will have the same features, but actually you are creating actually a new node which links to the other node. So this is an inline reference. And this different use case, it's crazy good because it allows you to, for example, do backlinking and all of these things. But most importantly, it allows you to differentiate the idea of actually reusing knowledge and actually connecting knowledge. Because generally, when you use basic references, you are not like, at least for me, it's not a way to actually link knowledge, but it's a way to reuse knowledge. When I use inline references, it's a way to link it.
That makes sense. I was gonna, let me share my screen for a second to bring this topic of what you were saying. So can you see my screen right now? Yeah, right. Okay, yeah. I had some stuff in there, but like this is a demo of like the daily page. And what you said, just to make it kind of more concrete to people at home. Let me just, can you still see my screen there? No, you see all the stuff there. Okay. So what you were saying was very interesting about, like, for instance, you have this is a node, and what we were talking about is if I'm here, let me just zoom it a little bit. If I'm just here, we can just like, as long as it's kind of embedded somewhere else because it cannot be in the same level, it can be modified in there in context, right? So anything that I modify here goes up there. Now, just to take it to another level of like that concept, I think is very interesting how, for instance, I can just move this to the library. So it's in my demo and then I put it on the library. So right now it's somewhere else. And what you were saying is pretty much that if I delete this, it still exists. It's just that I removed it from this context, right? So now the other thing that I find interesting and I want to know if you use a lot is this contextual editing, I believe it's called. I'm not sure the right name, but let me just give the example.
Contextual column.
Contextual what?
It's contextual column or contextual node, basically.
Exactly.
That's how it is.
Yep. So like pretty much if I use the shortcut, in my case, I'm in Windows, Control-Shift-Down arrow or Command-Shift-Down arrow, I have like this squiggly line, right? And it's very interesting because now if I write something, it means that I'm just, it creates this different symbol, right? For people at home. And now it's just crazy because this is what actually, like anything that I write, anything in here is actually in the node. And then everything in here is pretty much underneath this line is pretty much living in today's node instead of this one. So to make it more real, I'm just going to open it right here. Let me just make it like that. So anything
this
in
is
here,
crazy.
Isn't that just crazy? Like that blew my mind. It took me like a proper day to understand what was going on because what is in here, this is only on my day view. And I can see it referenced down here, but it's not existent in here. So if I just delete this one's still empty, right? Like that for me was such a powerful idea. And it's somewhat similar to what you can do in Rome by linking to pages, but it's just more powerful. So I would love to know what you think of that feature and if you use it a lot or not.
So this is a great feature and I don't use it simply because it's so powerful that for me right now, it doesn't make much sense. But for example, one way in which this is crazy is that, for example, let's say that I'm having a meeting with someone and I'm actually taking getting some information from multiple nodes. What I can do is that if I want to actually, let's say, comment on some things, and these comments are only meaningful in a certain context, that is in my meeting, I can just use this contextual column. The idea and why they are called like this is basically that they add the contextual specific information where the context is inferred from the node in which they are in. So if I create basically a link, in this case, this is a node in a as a child of a parent node that is called, for example, meeting, and I add a contextual column to that, this is the context. And this is beautiful because actually from an implementation point of view, when you see a reference, I don't know how they did implement it, but it's just a new node that is bound content-wise to another node, but can have a list of children that is displayed independently. And this is crazy interesting because as the name suggests, it allows you to basically sprinkle context on data. And this is crazy when you apply it to fields, because the example you showed is very interesting. Because when you apply it to fields, it means that you can have a schema of your data that is general. But if you have then a set of live queries that fetch that data, and in a certain context, you need more information. For example, one very simple use case is I have a set of nodes, and at the end of each semester at university, I want to, let's say, check those nodes for the review or to study them. What I can do is I can build in my course a live query, give me all the course nodes for this course, and I can add a contextual column of type checkbox, which says, for example, completed review. And then I can basically use the checkbox for every node inside of this course to say I have actually reviewed it. But this completed review is only bound to the context of the course. If I see the data and query again these nodes somewhere else, they don't have this field.
Right. It's like adding a checkbox to only the view that I'm in, but not to the real node.
Exactly.
Right? And you can just like make that very versatile without cluttering the regional information, right?
Yes.
Yeah,
and
amazing.
That's crazy powerful.
It is. I was going to ask you, right now, as of October 2022, the mobile apps don't really they're not meant to be used yet. You can access them, especially in Android. There's still tons of glitches. Unfortunately, I don't know if you have iPhone or Android, but like in Android right now.
I use it on my iPhone.
On your iPhone, how is the experience in that? Because for Android, there's a glitch that doesn't let me type anything right now, so I can only search things, but I cannot type. Yeah.
You can already see how bugged it is, like since I opened it. Of course, it's not 100% usable, but once you are used to the hacks where to type, you can do that. But thanks to the community and the API, I was able to actually integrate a shortcut into my device to actually automatically add information.
I know what you mean. I'm super jealous because that is for iPhone and people have workarounds for Android that I've been asking and testing, but still not as accessible. But what
you can actually build it for Android.
Yeah, right. It is possible. I just haven't spent the time, but I think it is possible, right?
Yeah, it is. It
is. And like for capturing ideas or capturing tasks on the fly, as you're out of the house, do you use the Tana app right now? Do you use that shortcut more than anything?
Yes.
Yeah.
Nice. So I use the Tana app, for example, to capture tasks. So when I'm on my way, and that's crazy because it's so nice to be able to do that. Of course, here we have two problems: lack of offline support, and because the data is actually loaded into memory. So how Tana works is that every time you load Tana, it's like Chrome. The entire, let's say, graph is loaded into memory. So what happens is that it's so fast because it's loaded in memory, but it takes more time to load. And on mobile devices, it can be problematic for large graphs because of memory constraints. So what I do is basically I add the tasks there, or for example, if I'm in bed and I forgot to journal, I just do that. It's difficult, but I can. And I use quick entries, which is my way of actually having, let's say, something to share. What I do is basically, if I browse, for example, and I see a website that is interesting, I just go on the website, I just share it, and it will automatically pop up into my Tana. And then from there, I review it, and I can tag it as a link, as an article, or wherever I want, basically.
Right. Yeah, I mean, that's pretty cool because I think that is obviously going to improve once they have like official apps. That's going to be amazing. As a tip for anyone at home that is struggling with this, what I actually do is I use workflowy just because it's something that I can use across devices. I just have like a note in there called inbox, and then I write it all on mobile. And then when I go to the computer, I just copy paste it, and the format just works perfectly. It works pretty nice. But your setup is way better. So yeah.
Yeah, I mean, once, for example, a possible evolution of this is to automatically infer, like as of now, their API doesn't allow you to add, for example, tags. But once you are
Yeah.
able to do that, you can build inference of types based on links, articles, and so on, and you can
Right.
map them over into your Tana automatically. For example, what you could do is a workflow that I can imagine is actually automatically infer the context and say link article or something, and automatically also inject the tag, let's say
Yes.
quick entry. You build a query with quick entries, and you can, for example, group by type. You can perform all sorts of filtering completely automatically on the data. And
Yeah.
like possibilities are endless. I can design
Right.
basically most workflows of quick add with this
Yeah.
as soon as they allow tags.
Yeah, I mean, obviously the future of mobile phone apps is gonna be amazing. So I really can't wait. I'm curious, like you mentioned how you capture like a blog post or something like that, a link. How do you actually deal with links in Tana? If you can show us, that'd be awesome because you can paste on top of some text, but I love to know if you use fields or stuff like that. So what is your workflow with
So
links?
basically, every time I have a link, I have basically the tag link, which
Okay.
basically allows me to actually search for links. Here, I have a
Oh,
query
wait.
which shows me all the
How do
links
you?
that I have.
What is the query for this one? Just the
It's
field
basically give me
links.
everything that is tagged as link. Yes, I won't
Oh,
show anything because I have some private
yeah.
links,
Okay, don't
so
worry, don't
I'm
worry.
not showing it for privacy reasons.
Yeah, don't
So
worry.
basically, the idea is that every time I will show you, basically, let's say that I
Yeah.
read an article,
Mm-hmm.
a fancy article. What I do is I tag it as article. And then inside of the article, I have basically a field called links. And here I can say, for example, let's say that I want to paste
Oh,
HTTPS something. And
oh,
basically I tag it as a link.
yeah,
And I will have basically the link set. And
yes.
then it will be added to my query of links.
Oh, interesting. Okay,
So
so
basically,
this links is a super tag, right? Like the links is just a super tag
exactly.
instead of because there is a built-in way to add a field as a URL, if I'm not wrong, right? You don't use that.
It is actually, no, I do. Actually, in this case,
Okay.
what happens is if you paste a link, it will be automatically initialized as a URL by Tana, but then
Yeah.
I add the link information because I use the link tag as a way to actually track if I want to open the link later. Because the idea is that all
Okay.
of the links by default do not have an openable state. But if I want to have like some kind of open later link, I just
Right.
add it as a link and then I set the openable state to open later. And then if I go to openable, here I will have basically the list of links that actually, because in my Tana workspace, I differentiate the idea between a link that is just metadata and a link that I can use and open later. So the idea is that, let's say that we speak about something interesting and you say that you have a very fancy website called santi.net.
Yep.
Then this kind of link, it's something that I would like to read later or open later. So what I do is tag it as a link and
Okay.
just say openable state, open later. So what I do is basically I have here a nice view of all of the links that I actually care about. So I want to open them. And
Right.
that's basically how I handle links.
Okay, so like say you are online, right? And you go to, tana.inc, right? And then just go to any URL and like copy the URL. Like, do you just paste it? Because that way it makes it clickable, right? Just by pasting any link on the daily.
Yes.
Yeah, exactly. Quick add. Yeah. So
as you
when
can
you
see,
expand this,
Tana automatically.
right. And do you still tag this with the super tag?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, I do. Yes, what happens is basically now that I don't know why it's not actually allowing me to do that. Yes, here it's allowing me. So I just say link. And what happens is that, of course, it will merge the fields. This is an automatically generated system field because it's actually purple. And then here we have the openable state. So the only difference is that this is basically, let's say, another type of custom node that is a URL node. And in this case, then I can just, for example, go here, open later, and I can find it here. And as you can see, because it's actually a link, proper link, I can open it.
Right. Okay. That makes sense.
Perfectly fine.
So do you think it's better to have like, nodes with just the link information, meaning that instead of like, actually, let me share my screen. If you can like stop sharing for a second just to show what I mean.
Yes.
Cool. So yeah, let me share mine. Okay. Can you see it?
Yes.
Cool. Yeah. So let's say, for instance, let me just go to the web somewhere. Like here I have my website, and I would just copy the link, and then there's a couple of ways, right? So links, options, link options, options. Yeah, there we go. I'm just gonna zoom into that. And there's one way, which is just copying it, which is what you showed, and that would create a URL field, right? Now, another way would be writing some text, selecting this, and pasting it on top, right? And then another way would be like, this is my website, which is pretty much the same as above, but it's just more like a link within the context. I would paste it here, right? Which one of these three do you think is the best way to go? Because I see the benefits of this one. This one doesn't create the field, does it? Or if I zoom into it, let me see. No, this one doesn't create a field, right?
No, it does not. It does not. Basically, as you can see here, the icon is still present, but one is at the node level, and the other one is a simple icon on the right. So basically, the idea is that this is actually up to you. In my opinion, because I just don't care about this, the URL field, if it is automatically there, it's fine. Because in my case, I just care about like the URL links. Content itself. It's basically the title of the node. So I don't care about URL field. What they did is actually built into automatically so that you can use this system field, for example, to automatically search everything that has a URL. This is basically their thought process. So the idea is that they want to say a URL is actually a node that contains a URL and has a title, the URL itself. So basically, it's a way for them to filter information.
I know what you mean. Not useful right now. Okay, that makes sense, because that way, if I just copy this other link, and then I would tag this one as well, links, then I just have pretty much like a list of all of the ones that are. For
example, if you want to achieve the same thing, you could simply say, Tana, give me all the nodes that contain the tag URL, the field URL. And this is basically semantically equivalent to the list of links.
Yeah, I know what you mean. So like find nodes with field URL? No,
exactly. Yes. No, I think it's not automatically fielded. Just do any node and then create the custom query, like edit the custom query yourself. So just create, let's do, for example.
Yeah, you do it because I think I know what you mean, but like you'll be more efficient doing it.
Okay, so basically the idea is that what you do is find nodes. If I do with any tag, it will explode in my workspace.
So maybe make up a tag or something. Yeah,
let me just, for example, take a link here.
Yeah.
I will show you. It's also for, as I said, for privacy reasons.
Yeah,
so here in this case, I do find nodes with any tag as list.
And then you modify it.
Basically, what I do here is basically saying that has URL. And if you run it, you can see. In this case, it even shows me links from my other workspace because it's not, because I can filter by workspace also. So yes, this is basically how it's working.
Yeah, I know what you mean. I know what you mean. So let me share my screen for a second.
This is a bug. Yeah.
So yeah, I know what you mean with that. So let me just share again. So yeah, actually, I was interested why there's no way to just create a live query without anything, right? What did you do right now? Just like any tag, just so that it creates something?
I think the reason, yes. I think the reason is that they want to simplify the usage of live queries as much as possible and actually let you customize the search expressions only if you know your thing.
I know what you mean. Yeah. So just another question regarding, like carrying on with that. I'm really curious what you think of, is there any usefulness? Because I do this a lot, actually, like this option where I write some text and then I put a link in context. Do you think that's a bit too convoluted? Because then I could have like add tag and I could do this one as a link. Should that work? Let me see. That should work. Yeah. You know what I mean? Like I can just like tag this particular one by just adding the tag to that one.
Wait, I'm not following. It's creating an entity automatically, because can you go into something younger? Because I don't know how it's handled. I've never did like this kind of linking. Where is the node staying?
Yeah. Let me create a new one just to give another example. Let's just go to, I don't know, Notion.
But yes,
I'm honestly not 100% sure, so I'm gonna figure it out as I go. So like this is a link to Notion, or rather, sorry, Notion, and then I would put that. Okay, so I don't know if this creates its own node, because right now it opens a thing, but just yeah, because okay,
like highlighted with the arrows, and press enter on it.
There it is. Press enter.
What happens?
Oh, it does create its own thing.
You can see it does.
Okay, does. Because that way now I could do what you were saying, which is like add the tag links. And now when I do the filter for links, or rather just click on this one, there is Notion. Okay, nice. Okay, I didn't know that.
How it is. I didn't know it neither.
We just figured out together right now. I had no idea. Okay, I like that.
I think what Tana is doing in this case is actually creating a node that is in some way bound to that. But the thing is that it's weird, because
it's weird.
Like, I don't get where is it placed in the hierarchy.
Exactly.
I didn't see the
let me see. Let's take a look to see if we can figure it out, because it didn't really make sense where it is. So like if I go here and
if you open it as before, you see
there it is.
It's basically it's like a hidden child.
Exactly. It's like bounded to it, so it's not its own node. Okay. Interesting. Okay.
That's a weird behavior, honestly, but
it is very strange. But I don't know.
Weird behavior.
Do you think that's like what they're intending to do, or is it more like something that they'll probably change?
No, for sure they did, because if you saw actually, then it has the URL, so it allows you also to get that thing. So it's it's basically, when you do like that, it's like if you're basically mentioning an inline node. It's like an inline reference, but in this case, it's a reference to basically its children, and it's automatically hidden. This is, I think, a way in which they handle it. Of course, it's completely like they want
intentional,
and it makes sense, because in that way it allows you to surface all of the links. Because if you say give me everything that has a URL, you expect that you will have also Notion returned if it is mentioned as a URL in line. So from an expectancy point of view, it's perfectly fine.
Okay,
if you think about it.
Yeah, it does make sense. Cool. A couple of questions regarding just the future of Tana. Well, how much of Markdown syntax, not really like Markdown files, because obviously in Tana everything's a node, but how much of Markdown syntax do you think will come to Tana, or do you just think is not going to be part of it?
That's a great question. I think it can be used only as a way to actually define a simple language to stylize basically your nodes. But Markdown and Tana are completely different things, and I don't see anywhere in the future. Like the only thing I can see is importing and exporting as Markdown, but nothing else.
Yeah, and basically the reason that I asked, mostly for context, people watching, and just to explain a bit more, like if I go to my website and I come here, like I have a really cool shortcut. I'm just gonna do the shortcut is Alt Y in my case, and that just pastes this. So it's just like Markdown syntax, but I wish it would render like a link, so I wish it would do this. I wish it would do that and copy this link and then paste that. You know what I mean? Like it's just a browser extension that grabs the title. So like if I'm in this other...
I get what you mean.
Like let me show you actually for a bit more context.
I mean, of course, this thing, I got what you mean, and this is perfectly fine. This is basically a way of data import. So it's perfectly fine that they could do that. This is, of course, a way, because actually, if you think about it, also Craft is doing like that. They support multiple ways of pasting information. So that's of course something that I'm sure they will do, because they want to actually, if you think about it, it's just a way to understand how to systematically map data from one schema to the other. So in this case, it's just a way. It's
mostly just formatting.
Of course. Yeah. Exactly, because of course, like the solution right now, what will be? It's basically to use Tana intermediate format, so they don't care about actually building it into the product itself. But so what they do is say, okay, there are two ways of doing it. Either you can build it on your own by automatically converting it to Tana intermediate format, or they can build basically on top of Tana intermediate format some kind of watcher that every time something is added into the field, it's converted to Tana intermediate format and pasted. So it's
that makes
completely
sense.
decoupled.
Okay. Yeah,
yes,
that makes total sense. You know, I was gonna ask, like, what do you think is gonna happen with what was this? Oh man, the thought escaped me. It was regarding the future of Tana, but oh man, I totally forgot it. I'll ask you something else if it comes back, I'll tell you. But yeah, like, do you think Tana is gonna just keep raising its price? That was the other question I had. Like, or do you think what they have, like, first, you know, what do you think of pricing right now as this current state and what they have on the website? I think I'm gonna share the screen just for people at home that are not familiar with the plan pricing. Just for people at home to understand a bit more of this, is that Tana right now, at least the pricing plan, because of course right now it's invite only as of October 2022, and it's going to be $10 a monthly, or yearly is going to be $100 divided by 12. I had it here, so $8. What are your thoughts on this? Like, do you think it's reasonable pricing? What do you think?
I think that actually the pricing is quite good, but I don't expect it to remain like this, because maintaining such a product can be quite expensive, both from an engineering but also infrastructure perspective. If you consider that, let's say that, for example, we only talk about plain text, it's not a big deal because text is very cheap. But once we go into images and PDFs that are supported, then I think I don't know how profitable it will be for them to have like 100 euros a year. I don't think so, especially because like it's very expensive if you consider that, of course, you like when you search for the nodes, you need to run indexing on the servers. Indexing takes a lot of time. So if you add many features, then the cost will of course become quite high. If they keep this price, it's very nice. I mean, there are several companies that do it, but this doesn't mean that they are profitable. So I don't know. I think I'm not an expert financially, so I have no idea. But I think that if the price remains like they said, it's unbeatable, considering because Tana is such a powerful tool that even if it would cost like 20 euros, and you teach people how to model most of their apps inside of Tana, then they can just pay less than the cumulative amount of money they will pay for tools like Todoist, things, Basecamp,
Rome
everything.
Research,
and you can Rome Research, so you can build everything. And I think this is one of the great things and the leverages that Tana can use when actually, for example, increasing the price. Let's say that they do it. It's one of their ways. Let's say it's one tool to rule them all. That's basically.
I mean, in my opinion, is the only app that gets close to that, because I've always been more of the idea of, you know, just use the right tool for the right job. And currently there's no app that can do it all. And Notion was like the closest it would get for like doing like all sorts of several workflows in one place, but it really wasn't as powerful as Tana. So right now I really feel like it's the closest it gets to like being able to congregate a lot of your workflow for people into PKM, right?
Yes. The thing that I'm scared the most about Tana, honestly, if I can give you a perspective from an engineering perspective, is actually how it can scale with a big graph. Because you can see Notion has been improved, but it's still quite slow. It's not very scalable performance-wise. And still, we are talking about text. Of course, it's like more advanced than normal text, but this is what I'm scared of, its performance. And of course, Rome was one of the kings of performance for a wide variety of reasons and optimizations. And I hope that Tana can actually be on that level, because the problem of loading everything into memory is that the performance is highly dependent on the device you're using. On my MacBook Pro, it's M1 Pro, it flies. On my MacBook Pro 2017, you already see with a small graph some hiccups here and there.
Really?
So yeah, that's the thing that is scaring me about the future of Tana, is actually how they will handle performance. But in this case, of course, that's not the priority, and it shouldn't be the priority. But actually, I know that they have it planned because I discussed with some of Tana's engineers, and I know they can do that. But yeah, I think this is a point to make. Performance is always
Okay.
a problem with this kind of apps. Yeah.
Yeah. So that's interesting because do you feel it would be a good idea to have separate workspaces? Because right now I have one main workspace for absolutely everything I do. But do you see any
Like me.
benefits? Yeah, right. Like you have the same.
I mean, yes, I mean, the seeing or not benefits, I have no idea under the hood if
Yeah.
workspaces are fetched in parallel, and I think they are, because if you saw, queries are basically like they can span across spaces, so both
Yeah.
graphs should be loaded. So in this case, what I expect the team will do is in some way build some kind of lazy loading to work
Yeah.
and build, basically load subsets of graph that Tana thinks might be useful for you.
Okay.
And and actually they allocate some of them when are not needed. I think that's one of the most feasible ways of doing it.
Right.
Or the idea
Interesting.
is to switch server side some operations, but then you will lose, of course, performance, and they will have to pay way more compute wise.
Yeah, that makes sense. So like obviously them as a company, which we don't control, they're gonna have to do tons of things to make sure that loading times are quick. But from the standpoint of us users, like what kind of stuff adds to this computing power? Just to understand it better, like having a lot of queries would make it heavier. Like is that the idea, or is it more about raw data?
So first of all, I'm not an expert in Tana's architecture. I have no idea about the data structures they are using, but of course, what the problem is that if you have a lot of basic data and still you surface this data via queries, I don't know if they are using indexes, which will of course change a lot. I don't think they are, because the queries are too complicated. They can reach complexities that are of course out of reach for basic indices. And so basically, I would say a mixture between how much content you have in a single view. It's the problem. Because basically, if you think about it, Tana, the app that you see, is just asking this huge graph that you don't see, give me the data, and it's converted to a representable, a presentation format. And so if you have lots of data to show, then it will be slow. But as I said, it's very implementation dependent. There are many ways to make it faster.
Yeah.
But yes. So if I could suggest something is try to limit the result set of your queries as much as possible, and try to limit the amount of live queries you have. But I don't want to basically now, let's say, blast the ton about performance, because it's very quick. It's very
so far
quick
it's good
for how much stuff it has. But you can notice performance bottlenecks. There are, like in Rome, in any app. But I think the floor, the ceiling is higher for Rome than Tana as of now.
Oh, I didn't know that. That's very interesting. But yeah, like, would you say that adding, like what you said on live queries, like would it be better to do most things based on live queries versus, for instance, the other example would be like to have a live query of every tag and then filtering only one tag? That probably isn't the most efficient way to go about it, right?
Try to reduce the result set at the source. That's important.
Through the live queries.
The difference is that if you have a live query that queries everything and you filter, still data will be presented. So there is some rendering in place. Whereas if you filter out, of course, you are still querying a big data set, but the performance penalty is not as high.
That makes sense. Nice. Yeah.
I mean, I think I can, for example, let me try my machine and then share the screen if it works. Actually, my machine is quite fast, so I'm not having this issue. But if you, for example, will try on your phone to like run a query, for example, with a lot of results, I think I can. Yeah, I mean, it's on this machine is very fast, so I can show it. But on my old MacBook, it's a bit problematic.
Right.
But still, I think what the team has done for now, still, we are talking about an early access, and the product is way more polished than others that I used in release builds. So
that makes sense. That makes sense. Just like for people to keep in mind, or rather like just some comparison, because I agree, like I have an old laptop that is right there and it's a Lenovo 920, but yeah, that one I can definitely feel like it's maybe a 560 laptop. That one I feel, for instance, loading time, just like as soon as I open Tana, it does take quite a while, like 40 seconds to load perhaps, whereas in this computer, like which is like a bigger PC, it's pretty fast, maybe 10 seconds tops. Like what are the loading times for you in your MacBook?
On my work MacBook, it's like lightning fast, crazy
Like
fast.
the
On
moment
my
that you open Tana?
No, it's not. It takes like, by lightning fast, I mean, sorry, not the loading, but all of the operations.
Yeah, the
When I talk
operations.
about the opening times, I can try now. Let me
give it a
see.
go.
But I think it's around 5 seconds. Let me see.
Yeah, give it a
I
go.
will open it
I'm curious.
now. 1, 2, 3, 4. Yeah, 4 seconds, 4 or 5
Okay.
seconds.
Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah. So, but do you think that, well, that definitely depends on the size of your graph, right? On the size of your workspace, or is there something else at play?
Yes.
Yeah,
I don't
right?
know if it's linear in complexity with graph size, but I expect it.
It's probably
For
related.
example, if you want to see on my phone, I'm launching it right now.
Yeah.
That's quite fast, actually.
It's quite fast, yeah.
But yes, of course, you need to remember that they are using, I'm pretty sure they're using caching. So you need to, like, if you want to see performance as like in the purest form, you need to try it on an incognito window to run it from scratch.
That makes sense. That makes sense. Yeah. Cool.
Yeah.
Yeah, but the rest, like that at the end of the day is not a deal breaker. Like I've used Emacs in the past, and like that took like 40 seconds, a minute sometimes to load, and that is when it gets annoying, But yeah, the loading time is really not a huge problem, and like you said, it's more important like how responsive it is when you're actually typing a query or just writing text. And that for me, like same experience as you, has been lightning fast for sure. In my old computer, I feel a little bit of like slower performance, but nothing too bad. Yeah.
No, it's for sure great. Of course, it's like in the same philosophy of From, the idea you load everything into memory and you just operate as fast as possible. Of course, if you load into memory, you have bottlenecks at some point, but the bottlenecks have a way higher ceiling than using, for example, because actually the problem is that with these applications, most of them are using web technologies, and I'm not an expert, but web technologies database-wise are still not as advanced as native solutions. So some performance penalties, of course, present also within memory.
Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah. And like, like collaboration, just I've been testing like writing on the laptop to the computer, and it's just like crazy. Like it's like so freaking fast. Like it's like as good as Google Docs or anything like that. Like it's just lightning fast. So I really am looking forward to how people start leveraging collaboration features in Tana, because I think it's gonna be crazy. Like, have you used any collaboration with anyone yet?
I did with a person that asked me to explain Tana to him, and it worked quite nice. It still has something to polish, and the thing I'm interested in, and this is also what I'm personally interested as a subject, is like how conflicts are handled, because it's a very complicated problem, how to actually basically say that our documents will eventually end up in the same situation, considering that updates can be, for example, lost into the network or arrive in different orders. And so this complexity is something that every developer that builds this up knows, but I think Tana for now did a great job. But I will need to actually test the edge cases to validate that.
Yeah, that makes sense. Either way, like everything looks good. Riccardo, thank you so much for your time. Like it's been amazing. Like any final thoughts, like anywhere you would like people to go to see your work, or anything you would like to talk about, any projects, like feel free to go ahead.
Yeah, basically, no, just if you want to follow me on Twitter, I think Santi can put the link down in the description. And also, if you want to have, I'm offering to people one-on-one sessions on Tana. So if you want to book one, I can also leave you some information down. So if you want me to help you, for example, build your workspace or ontologies, I'm up for that. And yeah, besides that, I'm really much looking forward to the future of Tana, and I think it will be very bright because the product is there and it's looking crazy good in my opinion. So I'm super pumped for the future of the platform.
Amazing. Yeah, of course. I'll leave the links in the description for anyone at home. Like that sounds amazing. I might sign up as well. And yeah, man, best of luck with that. Thank you for your time. Any concluding thoughts? Anything you'd like to maybe some piece of advice for people feeling a bit overwhelmed? You know, total beginners. What would you advise? What would your advice be for them?
Take it easy. Try to imitate other people's workflows, but try to understand the reasoning behind those, and use a workspace in which you can play around things, because that's important. You need to play instead of actually saying, oh, I want to move everything from Rome to Tana, and that's it.
Yep.
Play with Tana, try to understand how it fits your workflow, and then go very slowly, because it can get overwhelming, especially if you see what other people are doing with crazy queries, initialization expressions, and then you're like, and say, wait, but I want to know what a tag is. So
Right.
Take your time, go through the help center, and the team is super available to help you out. So don't worry about that. That's my closing thought.
Amazing. Okay, you heard the advice, guys. That's it. Thank you so much, Riccardo, and I'll see you next time. Bye, guys.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
All right, so I hope you enjoyed this conversation as much as I did. Riccardo's a great guy. Again, all the information to reach him out and the links he mentioned are going to be in the description. And again, if you're a beginner and you want to learn Tana the right way, do check out my Tana course to build the solid foundations you need to make the most out of this amazing app. So if that sounds cool, do check out the description, and I hope you have an awesome week. See you later. Bye. See ya.